The sign of Pisces is considered as one of the most inoffensive and gentle signs out there. But did you know that some of the most violent and infamous serial killers were born in the sign of Pisces, such as Dennis Rader, aka the BDK, or Richard Ramirez, aka the Night Stalker? Also, did you know that Pisces holds the second place of most serial killers just behind Aquarius? And by the way, you can check the video on Aquarius serial killers in the description box. On this channel, we are looking at serial killers from the astrological point of view. We're combining astrology and criminal profiling to try to understand what natal charts can tell us about these offenders. We'll be creating astrological criminal profiles to try to find similarities and differences in the astrological makeup of these killers to better understand criminal behavior in general. In order for someone to be classified as a serial killer, they must have killed at least 3 victims on separate occasions, which may be days, weeks, months, or even years apart. Some killers on our list have less than 3 confirmed victims but more than 3 suspected victims, and they will also be included. Our list includes serial killers from around the globe who were born in the 19th and 20th centuries and whose date of birth data is available. While we're focusing on finding what made them tick from the astrological point of view, we must never forget their victims, victim families' pain, and the general death and destruction they have left behind. Before we start the investigation, please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also turn on that notification bell so you never miss out on new videos. You're already acquainted with the fact that most serial killers were born in the sign of Aquarius. But did you know that the second sun sign that has the most serial killers is Pisces? Believe it or not, there are 107 Pisces serial killers. 7 are female and 100 are male. Out of the 7 female serial killers, 1 was born in the 19th century and 6 in the 20th century. Out of the 100 male serial killers, only 3 were born in the 19th and 97 in the 20th century. To better understand criminal behavior, I've assembled an international list of Pisces serial killers, ensuring our examination remains unaffected by cultural, racial, or religious variables. These Pisces offenders come from various regions around the globe. That is, they're from Australia, Belarus, Canada, China, Colombia, the Czech Republic, Ecuador, Estonia, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, Peru, Poland, Romania, Russia, UK, Ukraine, Uruguay, and the USA. The most prolific female Pisces serial killer is also one of the most infamous ones. It's Aileen Wuornos, who was born on February the 29th, 1956 in the USA. Her mother married her father when she was only 14, while her father was 18. They soon got a son, Keith, and a year later, Aileen was born when her mother was only 16. Her parents divorced 2 months before she was born, and Aileen never met her father, who was later sentenced to life imprisonment for kidnapping and raping a 7-year-old girl. He was diagnosed with schizophrenia and committed suicide in prison in 1969. When Aileen was 4, her mother abandoned her and her brother and left them in the care of her parents. Aileen later claimed that her maternal grandfather sexually abused her when she was a child. Aileen started engaging in sexual activities in exchange for cigarettes, drugs, and food when she was only 11. When she was 15, in 1971, she gave birth to a baby boy who was placed for adoption. Around the same time, her grandmother died and her grandfather threw Aileen out of the house. She began living in the woods near her old home and supported herself through prostitution. Between the ages of 14 and 22, she attempted suicide 6 times. She was arrested several times before serial killings. She was arrested for armed robbery, car theft, resisting arrest, and so on. In 1986, she met 24-year-old Tyra Moore. They moved in together and Wuornos supported them with her earnings as a sex worker. Aileen killed her first victim on November the 30th, 1989. She later claimed that he raped and beat her and that she shot him several times in self-defense. The truth is, it was proven that he had been convicted of rape previously. Aileen continued on killing men who solicited her services, and in the span of 12 months, she killed 7 men. On January the 9th, 1991, Wuornos was arrested on the pretext of an outstanding warrant in the name of Laurie Grody. Police located Tyra Moore the next day, and she agreed to elicit a confession from Wuornos in exchange for immunity from prosecution. Aileen confessed, claiming that all the men tried to sexually assault her and that she killed them in self-defense. She received 6 death sentences. After spending 10 years on death row, Eileen Wuornos openly said that she wanted to die. She was executed by lethal injection on October 9, 2002. The second most prolific female Pisces serial killer is Christine Falling from USA, who was born on March 12, 1963. Christine's father was 65 and her mother was only 16 when she was born. She was the youngest child in the family that lived below the poverty line, and she didn't receive the necessary childhood support. She was considered mentally challenged and also suffered from epilepsy. Christine spent part of her childhood and teen years in various orphanages because her parents couldn't afford to support her. She would kill small animals, especially cats, by throwing them off great heights. When she was 14, her parents forced her to marry a 20-year-old man, but the marriage ended in divorce after only 6 weeks. In the following 2 years, she was hospitalized 50 times, but doctors were unable to find any treatable condition. Christine suffered from hallucinations and claimed she was seeing red dots appearing before her eyes. She began working as a babysitter for her neighbors and friends to earn some money. The first child who died while in the care of Christine Falling was a 2-year-old Cassidy. Her autopsy stated that she died of blunt force trauma to the head. Christine claimed that Cassidy had fallen out of her crib. The attending physician didn't believe Christine's story and recommended in a note to police to investigate her. However, this note was lost and the case was closed. Obviously, Christine didn't stop there. The same year, 1980, another toddler died in her care. The autopsy said that a boy died of myocarditis. While his funeral was taking place, Christine was asked to take care of the boy's cousin, another 2-year-old. Needless to say, he died a few hours later, and the doctor said it was because of a viral infection. After this, she started working as a nursing assistant/housekeeper for seniors. A 77-year-old man died in his kitchen the same day Christine started caring for him. Christine Falling killed a total of 6 people, mostly toddlers. She confessed to killing 3 of the children because the voices in her head had told her, "Kill the baby." She was sentenced to life imprisonment. Her first parole application was rejected in 2017. She will have another parole hearing in 2024. The most prolific male Pisces serial killer is José William Aranguren, aka Desquite and Capitán Venganza, from Colombia, who was born on March 5, 1935. When he was 15, the local mayor killed his father and brother, after which he had to flee the village with his mother and the rest of his siblings. His first known crime occurred in 1956, when he ambushed a truck from a tobacco company, where 4 crew members were killed. He was sentenced to 23 years in prison, but he escaped after a year. He organized a gang and he carried out numerous assaults on villages where a lot of villagers were killed. He even killed members of the security forces, such as soldiers, non-commissioned officers, and members of other gangs, and he even didn't shy away from killing a child. A famous journalist, Gonzalo Arango, said that Aranguren was an assassin who killed simply to kill. Aranguren was located on a farm in 1964, where an assault team led by the soldiers killed him. José William Aranguren killed 115 victims. The second most prolific male Pisces serial killer is Mikhail Popkov, aka the werewolf from Russia, who was born on March 7, 1964. Popkov was a police officer in the Irkutsk region, and by the time of his capture was also a security guard in one company as well as in the private firm. Popkov killed between 78 and more than 83 girls and women, all between the ages of 16 and 40. He said that he wanted to cleanse the streets of prostitutes and that committing the murders, I was guided by my inner convictions. It is speculated that growing up with his abusive, alcoholic mother contributed to his behavior. He targeted women he considered were doing something immoral, such as going to a party without a male companion. He would go out at night wearing his police uniform and offer potential victims lift in his police car. He would then take them to remote locations, force them to take off their clothes, kill them with tools including knives, axes, baseball bats, and screwdrivers, and sexually assault their bodies. He would also mutilate them so much that the Russian media named him the werewolf. Despite extensive inquiries and testimonies from surviving victims, Popkov eluded police for 2 decades. Finally, by the use of DNA testing on all current and former police officers, Popkov was arrested in 2012, and in 2015 he was sentenced to life in prison for 22 murders and 2 attempted murders. 2 years later, Mikhail Popkov confessed to 59 more murders. In 2018, he was convicted of 56 further murders and was given a second life sentence. In 2020, he confessed to 2 more killings. This time I'll bring you the cases of 3 youngest-born Pisces serial killers, even though I tend to limit myself to 2. However, since there are 3 serial killers born in the same year, all 3 cases will be presented in this video. The first one is Viktor Sayenko, aka the Dnipropetrovsk maniacs from Ukraine, who was born on March 1st, 1988. Viktor Sayenko is a part of the trio who terrorized Dnipropetrovsk in June and July of 2007. The other 2 are Igor Suprunyuk, a Taurus, and Alexander Hanza. In fact, only Viktor and Igor participated in the killings, while Alexander helped with 2 armed robberies that took place before the killing spree began. All 3 were born the same year, 1988. They were friends since childhood and were in the same class until the 9th grade. They came from well-situated and even wealthy families. Victor's dad was a lawyer in the prosecutor's office, and Igor's mother was a high-ranking employee of the district state administration, while his father was the personal pilot of President Kuchma. Allegedly, Sayenko's school nickname was, roughly translated, boy-girl, due to the fact that he was very attached to Suprunyuk and indulged in any and all of his whims. The boys first had problems with the law while in the 5th grade by throwing rocks at a train, but due to the connections of their parents, they weren't charged with anything. When they were 15 years old, Viktor and Igor committed their first crimes, such as thefts, robberies, torture and killing of animals, and even armed robberies. They would beat their victims with metal pipes, but Igor decided these methods were not effective because the victims could put up some resistance. The pair often talked about wanting to kill 40 people. They committed their first murder on June 25, 2007 by killing a 33-year-old woman with a hammer. They killed 21 people, including children, elderly, homeless people, and even a pregnant woman. Their victims were usually killed with blunt force trauma to the head, and most of them were tortured before they were brutally murdered. At the trial, Sayenko was represented by his own father, who, as we said, was a lawyer. The evidence against them included bloodstains on the suspect's clothing and video recordings of the murders. Both Viktor Sayenko and Igor Suprunyuk were sentenced to life imprisonment and 15 years of hard labor. The second one is Dmitry Kopylov, aka the youth maniac from Russia, who was born on March 2nd, 1988. He grew up in poverty with drunk parents. His mother died when he was very young, and his father reportedly encouraged him to drink from an early age. Because of this, he was taken away by social services and put in an orphanage. While there, Dmitry became increasingly impulsive and violent and gained reputation as a bully. He would torture and kill animals. In the early 2000s, his father recovered from alcoholism and regained custody of his son. Dmitry began killing in June 2004. He chose women he saw walking alone in deserted areas. He would sexually assault them, kill them by hitting them on the head and stabbing them multiple times, and then steal their belongings. He killed 4 women and 1 man in total. He was arrested in 2005. He was sentenced to 10 years, a maximum sentence for juvenile offenders in Russia. His current fate is unknown, but it is assumed that he was released after serving out his sentence. The third youngest born Pisces serial killer is Itzcoatl Ocampo from USA, who was born on March 20th, 1988. He was born in Mexico City, but shortly after his birth, his family emigrated to the United States. He was known as being friendly and approachable when he was in school, which made him very popular. 9/11 attacks left a profound effect on him, and he became interested in politics, supporting the Republican Party and George W. Bush's foreign policies. After high school, he enlisted in the Marine Corps. He was deployed to Iraq but never participated in combat. After returning to the USA, he was sent back to Camp Pendleton. There, he sustained significant head trauma. After this, he had trouble finding work and eventually settled for a landscaping job. Not long after returning from Iraq, he began to show signs of PTSD and exhibited deviant behavior. However, he felt he wasn't qualified to be diagnosed with PTSD because he didn't participate in combat. By the end of 2011, he developed hypochondria and showed signs of clinical delirium. The first murders occurred on October the 25th, 2011, when he fatally stabbed a friend's mother and brother in their own home. A witness described the offender to the police, but because Ocampo and his friend, whose family he had just killed, were similar in appearance, his friend was arrested instead. Obviously, he had nothing to do with the murders, but was still considered a prime suspect. In December of the same year, he killed again. In total, he killed at least 6 people, 4 of whom were homeless men. While waiting trial on November the 27th, 2013, Itzcuatl Ocampo ingested a large dose of a cleaning detergent. He died the following day. You might be surprised to find these many very infamous Pisces serial killers, given that the sign of Pisces is considered to be one of the most sensitive ones. But before we continue, let me clarify a few things. Every sign has its high and low vibrations, positive and negative sides. It's possible that someone falls more in the negative spectrum of that sign than the positive. Second, having a personality disorder doesn't override astrology. They'll still have their personality traits, character, fears and hopes, reactions and motivations that are unique to them. Are people with, say, antisocial personality disorder who are not killers, are they actually clones who all behave in exactly the same way? No, they're not. They're as different from one another as anybody else. They have different interests and different motivations. Third, serial killers are not Disney villains who are one-dimensional, ugly people with evil laughs. They're humans who usually don't look nor behave like Disney villains. They have different motivations, different reasons, and different reactions. Serial killers are not a different subspecies that we can't understand. If astrology applies to everyone else, regardless of their pathology and disorders, it applies to serial killers as well. The most infamous Pisces serial killers are John Wayne Gacy, aka the Killer Clown, Richard Ramirez, aka the Night Stalker, Dennis Rader, aka the BTK, Todd Colehap, aka the Amazon Review Killer, and Eileen Wuornos. Since we've already talked about Eileen Wuornos' case, I won't be mentioning her in this part. John Wayne Gacy, aka the Killer Clown, was born on March 17, 1942 in the USA. Gacy had a close relationship with his mother and 2 sisters, but a difficult one with his alcoholic and abusive father. In 1949, a family friend began to occasionally molest him. As a child, Gacy was overweight, and because of his heart condition, he was told to avoid sports. He started experiencing blackouts in the 4th grade. When he was 18, John Wayne Gacy started working as an assistant precinct captain for the local Democratic Party candidate. The same year, Gacy's father bought him a car, but would take keys from him if he wouldn't do what he wanted. After one of the incidents with his father and the car, Gacy left home and drove to Las Vegas in hopes of residing with a cousin. There, he first worked in the city's ambulance service and then transferred to mortuary for 3 months. One evening, he climbed into the coffin of a teenage male and started embracing and caressing his body. He returned home after this experience. Gacy enrolled at Northwestern Business College and graduated in 1963. He got married in 1964. He opened the club in his basement so that the employees of the KFC restaurants he was managing could drink and play pool. Although he had employees of both sexes, he socialized only with the males. At this time, he started abusing male teens. He was arrested in 1968 and was sentenced to 10 years imprisonment. During his incarceration, he was considered model prisoner. After serving 18 months, Gacy was given parole in 1970. In 1975, Gacy started performing as a clown, creating 2 characters, Pogo the Clown, who was a happy clown, and Patches the Clown, who was a more serious clown. His serial killer moniker, the Killer Clown, came from him performing as a clown throughout the years he spent killing people. John Wayne Gacy committed all of his murders in his own ranch house. He would typically lure victims to his home and dupe them into putting on the handcuffs under the pretext of wanting to show them a magic trick. He would then sexually assault and torture his victims before killing them. His first known murder occurred in 1972 when he killed 16-year-old Timothy McCoy. He was arrested in 1979. John Wayne Gacy was executed on May 10, 1994. He killed at least 33 victims. Richard Ramirez, aka the Night Stalker, was born on February 29, 1960 in the USA. Quick note, have you noticed that both Eileen Wuornos and Richard Ramirez were born on February 29th, the rarest day that appears once every 4 years? Quite a coincidence, isn't it? Well, Richard's father, a Mexican national, was a former policeman who was physically abusive towards his wife and children. Ramirez began smoking marijuana and drinking alcohol early, when he was only 10 years old. He was later described by a psychiatrist as a made psychopath rather than a born one. If we take into account that psychopaths are born and sociopaths are made, Richard Ramirez would fit into the category of sociopaths. Ramirez was knocked unconscious and almost died on multiple occasions before he was 6 years old, which may have contributed to his later criminal activity. When he was 12, a cousin took him under his wing. This cousin, Miguel Mike Ramirez, was a serial killer and rapist himself. He would tell gruesome stories and share Polaroid photos with the young Richard of the Vietnamese women he had sexually assaulted, killed, and dismembered. Rather than being repulsed, young Ramirez was fascinated by these stories. To escape his father's abuse, Richard started sleeping in a local cemetery. In 1973, Mike fatally shot his wife in the face in the presence of a 13-year-old Richard, who would later say that he found witnessing the murder fascinating. Shortly after, Richard moved in with his older sister and her husband, who was a peeping Tom, and who took Richard along on nocturnal exploits. You can begin to see why that psychiatrist said that he was a made psychopath, as he was literally led down the path that would later turn him into a serial killer by the adults in his life. Cousin Mike even taught him some of his military skills, like stealth and kill tactics. By the time he was 14, he started using LSD, as well as being interested in Satanism and the occult. His first murder occurred on the April 10, 1984, when he murdered a 9-year-old Chinese-American girl in the basement of his apartment building. This killing was not linked to him until 2009. Richard Ramirez terrorized the residents of Greater Los Angeles and San Francisco Bay for 14 months before he was finally captured in August 1985. In 1989, he was sentenced to death in California's gas chamber. His comment was, "Big deal. Death always went with the territory. See you in Disneyland." In the end, he wasn't executed, but died of complications secondary to B-cell lymphoma in 2013. He killed at least 13 people. Dennis Rader, aka the BTK, was born on March 9, 1945 in the USA as the eldest of 4 sons. Both parents worked long hours to support their family, which made Dennis feel ignored, for which he resented his mother deeply. Dennis had sadistic fantasies about torturing trapped and helpless women from a young age. As it happens with a lot of serial killers, but not all of them, he used to torture and kill animals as a child. He started out as a peeping Tom, spying on his female neighbors dressed in women's clothing. Years later, between the murders, he would take pictures of himself dressed as a woman and wearing a female mask while being bound, pretending to be his victims as part of his sexual fantasy. Rader served in the United States Air Force from 1966 to 1970. He was married with 2 children. In May 1991, Rader became a dog catcher and compliance officer in Park City. He was overzealous and very strict and took special pleasure in bullying and harassing single women. He committed his first murder on January 15, 1974, when he killed 4 members of the Otero family, including 9-year-old Joey and 11-year-old Josephine, whom he hanged from a pipe in a basement. Rader killed at least 10 victims from 1974 to 1991 and is suspected in 2 more killings. Dennis Rader gave himself the moniker BTK, which stands for Bind, Torture, Kill. It's interesting that while most serial killers start killing at faster rates as their criminal behavior progresses and seem unable to stop, like Ted Bundy, for example, Rader could go years without killing anyone. In fact, his last known murder occurred in 1991, and he was arrested in 2005. This is due to the fact that it became increasingly difficult for Rader to mix his home and professional life with his life of a serial killer. By early 2000s, BTK's case was considered a cold case and people were losing interest. Ultimately, what got BTK was his own vanity and ego rather than exceptional police work. Rader wanted people to talk about him again, so he started sending letters to the local media. The fatal mistake Dennis Rader made was sending a floppy disk to the police, unaware that it contained metadata about its owner. Police found the name of his daughter on it, which led to the arrest of the infamous BTK in 2005. He was given 10 consecutive life sentences with a minimum of 175 years. Todd Colehap, aka the Amazon Review Killer, was born on March 7, 1971 in the USA. His parents divorced when he was 2 and he had an unhealthy relationship with his stepfather. He was aggressive as a child, destroying other children's toys, and, like many future serial killers, he was cruel to animals. At the age of 9, he was described as being explosive and preoccupied with sexual content. His father later said that the only emotion Todd had the capacity for was anger and madness. Todd spent 3.5 months in a psychiatric hospital because he couldn't get along with other children. In 1983, he went to live with his father, who taught him how to blow things up and make bombs. When he was 15, he kidnapped a 14-year-old girl and assaulted her. He was sentenced to 15 years and was registered as a sex offender. In prison, he graduated with a bachelor's degree in computer science. He was released in 2001. In 2008, he graduated with a Bachelor of Science degree in business administration marketing. He lied about his felony charge on the application for a real estate license, which is how he managed to obtain it. He built his own firm with dozens of agents and was considered one of the top-selling agents in the Carolina region. The first murders occurred on November 6, 2003, when 4 people were shot dead inside Superbike Motorsports. He killed 3 more people in 2015 and 2016. The reason he is known as the Amazon Review Killer is because he left seemingly joking product reviews for various items such as padlocks, shovels, and gun accessories on Amazon. One such review for a folding shovel reads, "Keep in car for when you have to hide the bodies and you left the full-size shovel at home. Does not come with a midget, which would have been nice." Todd Colehap received 7 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. As you already know, there are serial killers who were born on the same day of the same year, yet who have nothing to do with one another, and they're often from different countries. We call them astrological twins or astro twins. Pisces serial killers are no exception. In fact, there are 2 sets of Pisces astro twins. The first set consists of Michael Darnell Harris from the USA and Russell Williams from Canada, who were born on March 7, 1963. The case of Michael Darnell Harris is curious. He has been convicted and sentenced to life imprisonment for 4 murders and is suspected in 6 more. In 1982, he entered the property of a 68-year-old woman whom he was accused of beating and sexually assaulting. Soon after, he was proposed as a suspect in a series of rapes and murders. Harris has insisted on his innocence since his conviction. In the late 1990s, DNA testing was performed on the fluid samples found on the bodies of 3 of the victims, all of which matched Harris's genotypic profile. His appeals for new DNA testings had been denied up until 2016, when the new and improved testing showed that his DNA did not match the DNA found at the crime scenes. The Michigan State Police subsequently began an investigation to determine whether Harris had tampered with the evidence. In 2017, another DNA test showed that his DNA did match at least one of the crime scenes. Michael Darnell Harris remains incarcerated, but whether he's an actual serial killer or not is yet to be seen. Russell Williams was born in England, but his family immigrated to Canada. His parents divorced when he was 6, and his mother soon remarried. Apparently, he had a normal childhood where he delivered newspaper and learned to play the piano. He studied economics and political science and graduated in 1986. While he was a boarding student at Upper Canada College, he would prank his roommates by picking locked doors and hiding in rooms for hours to surprise and probably scare them. Williams joined the Canadian Forces in 1987, where he was promoted to captain in 1991. He was regarded as a model military officer. He committed his first murder on January 28, 2010. When interrogated by the police, he confessed to dozens of crimes, including multiple acts of breaking and entering and sexual assault. He had kept detailed track of police reports of the crimes he was committing, logged his crimes, kept photos and videos, and had even left notes and messages for his victims. He was sentenced to 2 concurrent terms of life imprisonment with no parole for 25 years. The second set of Pisces Astro twins consists of Sergei Osipenko, aka the Rososhansky maniac, from Russia, and Pablo Goncalves from Uruguay, who were born on March 6, 1970. Sergei Osipenko, aka the Rososhansky maniac, is a Kazakhstani-Russian serial killer who worked in the Ministry of Internal Affairs of Kazakhstan. He liked psychology and criminology. He killed his first victim on January 24, 2005. He would usually follow his victims, go into their apartment with them, sexually assault them, kill them, and steal their valuables. He committed his last murder on his birthday, March 6, 2006, by assaulting and killing a 13-year-old girl. He was arrested on April 6th of the same year, after witness noticed that the perpetrator was short. Osipenko was 167 centimeters tall. He was sentenced to life imprisonment for his crimes. Pablo Goncalves is a Spanish-born Uruguayan serial killer and the first one in country's history. He was the son of an Uruguayan diplomat in Spain. When he was 9, the family moved back to Uruguay. He committed his first murder on January 1st, 1992. He killed 2 young women and a 15-year-old girl by suffocating them. He was sentenced to 30 years, though he pleaded not guilty despite the abundant evidence against him. Goncalves was released in 2016. As you can see, evil is not restricted to only one culture, one country, or one part of the world. There is evil in every country and every culture, and here we are trying to analyze it so that we can detect it and prevent it in the future. Now let's start with the astrological statistics. Out of the 107 Pisces serial killers, and you can find the full list in the description box, we'll focus on the planetary positions of the ones mentioned today. In this video, we'll be focusing on the luminaries, that is the Sun and the Moon signs, and personal planets, that is Mercury, Venus, and Mars signs. The rest of the planets, including some asteroids, most notably Chiron, will be taken into account when we do videos on major aspects. Bear in mind that ascendant data is rarely available and will not be included, which also means that we won't be looking at the houses. We'll start with the moon, whose importance and influence on our daily lives is undisputed. There are many astrologers who see moon as more important than the sun, as it governs our emotions, intuition, instincts, emotional safety, and emotional responses. One important thing to have in mind, moon changes sign every 2.5 days approximately. Since we don't know the exact time of birth, for the majority of serial killers, there'll be those whose moon sign may be in one of the 2 neighboring signs. Further analysis in subsequent videos will give us a better understanding of which of the 2 moon signs is more likely to be correct than the other based on the characteristics of the crimes committed. Most Pisces serial killers have moon in Leo, 11 of them. Moon in Leo has big ego. They have a great drive to succeed, but they also often feel entitled, which can make them lazy because they expect to have everything without putting in much effort. They're very boastful, especially when it comes to their possessions. They like to be praised for what they have. This Pisces native is someone who has much bigger ego than an average Pisces. However, their sun and their moon form an conjunction, which creates a lot of confusion within the native. Pisces serial killers mentioned in this video who have moon in Leo are Victor Sayenko, Michael Darnell Harris, and Russell Williams. There are 9 Gemini moon serial killers. Gemini moon and Pisces sun form a square, which is one of the most difficult aspects. Their wants and needs, their personality and character are in constant clash. They want one thing but need another. They want a peaceful, tranquil life, but what they need for emotional safety is to always be on the go, talking about their feelings rather than actually feeling them. They're talkative and erratic. No killers mentioned in this video have moon in Gemini. Next, there are 7 Capricorn moon killers. Moon in Capricorn and Sun in Pisces form a sextile, which in itself is a good aspect. However, Capricorn moon on its own is a difficult position. It is said that moon in Capricorn is in exile. This is because Capricorn doesn't understand emotions very well. They would prefer emotions didn't exist. This is in stark contrast with the moon's energy, which is all about emotions, intuition, and emotional safety. Pisces killers with this moon may appear kind and gentle, but in reality, they're quite emotionless and insensitive. Dennis Rader has his moon in Capricorn. Next, there are 6 Aries, 6 Libra, 6 Scorpio, and 6 Taurus moon killers. Moon in Aries is bold and assertive. They know what they want and they want it now. They usually lack patience and have a very short fuse. They can get angry easily, but can as easily calm down. The good thing is they don't hold grudges. They have strong instant gratification streak. A Pisces sun with Aries moon is someone who has a more reserved character, but who is more decisive than an average Pisces. Richard Ramirez has this moon. Libra moon is very different from Aries moon. They're known for their indecisiveness. They want things to look good and they're more preoccupied with appearances than how things really are. They may seem ingenuine because they appear to be on friendly terms with everyone, regardless of how they actually feel about them. A Pisces sun with this moon is someone who has a tendency to be even more of a doormat than a regular Pisces, but who is also more superficial. Eileen Wuornos and Christine Falling have their moon in Libra. Moon in Scorpio is deep, intense, and brooding. This is another difficult moon position, but unlike Capricorn that doesn't understand emotions, Scorpio moon is way too intense for normal everyday life. Pisces sun with Scorpio moon is someone whose emotions run very deep, but who won't readily wear them on their sleeves. No killers mentioned in this video have moon in Scorpio. Moon in Taurus is hedonistic and selfish. They appear that they have empathy, and they actually do, but only when it suits them. Their biggest problem is inertia and unwillingness to change, especially when it comes to emotional change. They tend to think that they are correct and that they always make good decisions, regardless of whether it is true or not. A Pisces sun with this moon is someone who puts their needs first, but they are not in your face about it. No killers mentioned have this moon. There are 5 Aquarius and 5 Pisces moon killers. Moon in Aquarius is eccentric and erratic. They think they're unique, but oftentimes they're just weird. They find emotional safety in being different and having lots of friends and acquaintances. Pisces sun with Aquarius moon is very sociable and inquisitive. However, they may think they're somehow more spiritually evolved than others. No killers mentioned have this moon. Moon in Pisces is emotional and overly sensitive. They're dreamy and out of touch with reality. They're usually very spiritual, but they're rarely dogmatic. They're very intuitive and often act on their feelings rather than using logic. John Wayne Gacy and Jose William Aranguren have their moon in Pisces. Next, there are 4 Virgo moon killers. On its own, Virgo moon is practical and analytical, but also anxious and neurotic. The problem here is that Pisces sun and Virgo moon form an opposition, which is always a difficult aspect. This is a native who is very emotional, but prefers to classify and analyze emotions rather than feel them. No killers mentioned in this video have moon in Virgo. Finally, there are 3 Sagittarius and 3 Cancer moon killers. Moon in Sagittarius is easygoing and adventurous. They're usually optimistic and see life half full. However, the problem with this sun-moon combination is that it forms a square. This creates a constant tension within the native that can never go away. These natives don't feel at ease with themselves. No killers mentioned have moon in Sagittarius. Moon in Cancer is gentle and emotional. However, they can be whiny and emotionally manipulative, especially when they have sun in Pisces. They can use their sensitivity to control others. These natives often go with the flow and have active imaginations. No killers mentioned in this video have moon in Cancer. As you've noticed, I listed only 71 killers moon signs, which means that the rest belongs to the Pisces killers who were born on the days when moon changed from one sign to another. There are 6 Capricorn Aquarius, 5 Sagittarius Capricorn, 4 Aries Taurus, and 4 Pisces Aries. Mikhail Popkov has his moon in either Sagittarius or Capricorn, while Itzokotl Campo has his moon in either Aries or Taurus. Finally, there are 3 Aquarius Pisces, 3 Gemini Cancer, 3 Leo Virgo, 3 Scorpio Sagittarius, 2 Cancer Leo, 2 Virgo Libra, and 1 Taurus Gemini. Sergei Osipenko and Pablo Goncalves have their moon in either Aquarius or Pisces, Dmitry Kopilov has his moon in either Leo or Virgo, and Todd Kohlhepp has his moon in either Cancer or Leo. No Pisces serial killers were born on the days when moon changed from Libra to Scorpio. Further analysis of the individual cases and the comparison to the known moon signs will tell us which of the two signs is more likely to be correct. This might, of course, alter the existing statistics of the serial killer moon signs, but in subsequent videos we'll see how much and in what direction. The next planet we're going to analyze is Mercury. Mercury is important to understand as it governs how we think and how we communicate with others. Mercury can only be in 3 signs: the sun sign of the native, one previous, and one subsequent sign. In the case of Pisces natives, it can be in Aquarius, Pisces, and Aries. There are 50 Pisces, 43 Aquarius, and only 14 Aries Mercuries. Pisces Mercury has a knack for figuring out what people want and need and adapting their speech to it. These natives are very intuitive speakers and good listeners, especially when it comes to Pisces Sun, where this trait is enhanced. However, these natives live more in their fantasy world and have problems putting their ideas into practice. As usual, most serial killers have Mercury in the same sign as their sun. Pisces is no exception. Therefore, most serial killers mentioned in this video also have Mercury in Pisces. Richard Ramirez, Itzcoatl Ocampo, Sergei Osipenko, Pablo Goncalves, Mikhail Popkov, Todd Kohlhepp, Dennis Rader, and Christine Falling. Aquarius Mercury is friendly and sociable. They like to talk and exchange ideas, but often have trouble remembering what the other person said, probably because they're more focused on what they're saying than on what the other person is talking about. These Pisces Sun natives don't have much patience, but they rarely hold grudges. Eileen Wuornos, Victor Sayenko, John Wayne Gacy, Dmitry Kopilov, Jose William Aranguren, Michael Darnell Harris, and Russell Williams have Mercury in Aquarius. Aries Mercury is bold and assertive in their communication style. They're goal-oriented and can be very vocal about their desires. They're not shy about doing what they want. No killers mentioned have this Mercury. The next planet we're going to analyze is Venus. It is a very important planet, especially for our study. Venus is the planet of beauty, aesthetics, charm, and above all, relationships. In a male chart, it indicates what kind of person the native finds attractive, while in the female chart, it tells how the woman flirts. In both male and female charts, Venus shows what we want out of a relationship and how we behave in a relationship. Since majority of the cases we're investigating are of psychosexual nature, the position of Venus is very important. This is especially true for male killers because their crimes are usually driven by sexual desires. Similar to Mercury, Venus can only be in 5 signs: the sun sign of the native, 2 previous, and 2 subsequent signs. In the case of Pisces natives, Venus can be in Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces, Aries, and Taurus. There are 35 Aries, 34 Aquarius, 19 Pisces, 10 Taurus, and 9 Capricorn Venuses. Aries Venus likes the chase. They like the game of love and aren't afraid to either show their interest or pursue the other person. They can also be impatient, which can lead to all sorts of problems. When they want something, they usually want it right now. Serial killers mentioned in this video who have Venus in Aries are Eileen Wuornos, Victor Sayenko, Dmitry Kopilov, Jose William Aranguren, Mikhail Popkov, and Dennis Rader. Venus in Aquarius is similar in that it's impatient, but they're also erratic and very easily get bored. These natives prefer intellectual to emotional connection. They want someone who is different and unique and will keep them constantly on their toes. This is why they usually don't stay long in a relationship, because every relationship is bound to be at least somewhat predictable. These natives are thrill seekers when it comes to love. Richard Ramirez, John Wayne Gacy, Michael Darnell Harris, Russell Williams, Todd Kohlhepp, and Christine Falling have their Venus in Aquarius. Pisces Venus is romantic and overly sensitive. They're very intuitive, but also live in their fantasy world and rarely step into the real world. These natives, especially those with Pisces Sun, may feel that the world is against them if things don't go as they would have wished to. Instead of taking responsibility, they're prone to blaming others for their own misfortune. Pisces serial killers mentioned in this video who have Venus in Pisces are Sergei Osipenko and Pablo Goncalves. Venus in Taurus is hedonistic and a bit lazy. They don't like to put in the effort and would prefer if things would happen to them almost magically. If they're not economically well off, they have the tendency to envy those who have more than them, or at least those who they perceive are wealthier than them. Itzcoatl Ocampo has his Venus in Taurus. Finally, Capricorn Venus is not very adept at love. It doesn't mean that they can't fall in love, but they generally see expressions of love as childish. When they fall fall hard. A male with this Venus will be attracted to people who appear cold and mysterious. A female with this Venus will appear unapproachable and frigid. No killers mentioned have this Venus. The last planet we'll be analyzing in this video is Mars. Mars is a very important planet, not just generally speaking, but for our astrological profiling. It deals with aggression, how we act and react to the world, the pain, and how we go about doing stuff. In a male's chart, it shows how he flirts. In the female chart, it shows what kind of people she's attracted to. That isn't to say that when flirting, a man will not employ some of his Venus sign, and a woman will not employ some of her Mars sign, as that happens often. And these two planets, Venus and Mars, are the ones most closely looked at when dealing with romantic relationships. In both charts, it is also related to sexuality. Most Pisces serial killers have Mars in Capricorn, 16 of them. This isn't much of a surprise because a Pisces killer needs a less sympathetic Mars to be able to commit heinous crimes. This Mars is goal-oriented and very ambitious. These natives are far more goal-oriented than people-oriented. Eileen Wernos, Viktor Sayenko, Dmitry Kopilov, and Itzcoatl Campo have their Mars in Capricorn. Next, there are 14 Aquarius and 14 Gemini Mars killers. Aquarius Mars natives are usually visionary, but are also erratic and unpredictable. This unpredictability can actually help them commit their crimes, because they can always be one step ahead of the police. It's not like they're actively seeking to outsmart the police, but their behavior often throws them off the tracks. Richard Ramirez and Dennis Rader have their Mars in Aquarius. Mars in Gemini is equally erratic, but are also very talkative and like to use their words as weapons. They actually like to taunt the police and the victims' families, but if they don't do that for some reason, especially because of the shyness of their sun in Pisces, they're adept at using words to get to their victims. John Wayne Gacy has his Mars in Gemini. 13 Pisces Sun serial killers also have Mars in Pisces. These natives are shy and reserved, but can be very emotionally manipulative. People usually don't see them as a threat, which can greatly facilitate their criminal behavior. These natives can be whiny and can often blame others because they often see themselves as the real victim. Mikhail Popkov has his Mars in Pisces. There are 12 killers with Mars in Taurus. Mars in Taurus is stubborn and reluctant to change. Because of this, they can also be lazy. They can be argumentative, but will ultimately do only what suits them. They're not the best problem solvers because they're so attached to their routines and proven practices that they can't easily adapt to new situations. No killers mentioned in this video have Mars in Taurus. Next, there are 8 Aries and 8 Leo Mars killers. Mars in Aries is assertive and even aggressive. They're go-getters and won't stop at nothing until they achieve what they want. They can be very imprudent as they rarely consider consequences of their actions. This is in stark contrast with the reserved Pisces Sun. They like to experiment and like to experience new things, which makes them thrill seekers. Sergei Osipenko and Pablo Goncalves have their Mars in Aries. Mars in Leo likes to be praised for their actions. They're very proud and have big egos, even though they may do their best to hide it, especially with Pisces Sun. They can be very stubborn if they believe their integrity is being under attack. This can also make them retaliate against the person or persons who slighted them, at least in their own eyes. Michael Darnell Harris, Russell Williams, and Christine Falling have their Mars in Leo. There are 7 Sagittarius Mars killers. Sagittarius Mars is adventurous and outgoing. They're usually lighthearted and don't take things as seriously. They think everything in life is fun and games, which may prevent them from understanding other people's pain and suffering. Todd Kohlhepp has his Mars in Sagittarius. There are 5 Cancer Mars killers. Cancer Mars is shy, reserved, and passive-aggressive. This is a difficult Mars position because Cancer is incompatible with Mars's energy. Mars is all about action and assertiveness, while Cancer is anything but that. Cancer Mars, being a cardinal sign, will not abandon its goals. However, it doesn't move forward directly, but rather in a roundabout way. No killers mentioned in this video have Mars in Cancer. 4 Pisces Sun serial killers have Mars in Libra. Similar to Mars in Cancer, Mars in Libra is passive-aggressive. However, this stems from their innate indecisiveness. They're always weighing pros and cons to every situation, which makes it hard for them to make a prompt decision. Jose William Aranguren has his Mars in Libra. Finally, there are 3 Scorpio and 3 Virgo Mars killers. Unlike the previous 2 Mars signs, Scorpio Mars is not shy nor indecisive. They know what they want and they're proactive about it. However, they're also dark, obsessive, and possessive. It is hard for them to let go. These natives are destructive but also self-destructive. No killers mentioned in this video have Mars in Scorpio. Mars in Virgo is similar to Mars in Capricorn in that it is goal-oriented, meticulous, and detailed. They're also very analytical with which can help these killers in making plans. However, let us not forget that Sun in Pisces and Mars in Virgo form a square, and that while Mars in Virgo is very meticulous, they're also changeable and may not be able to get their plans to the end. No killers mentioned have Mars in Virgo. What have we learned so far? Some of the most infamous serial killers ever were born in the sign of Pisces. Being born in one of the most romantic and gentle signs doesn't prevent people from becoming killers. They have active imaginations and can often live more in the fantasy world than in the real one. Stay tuned for more astrological profiling videos.